Here we go. No shirt, no mic. Drinking Coca Cola past my bedtime. That's about as real as a motherfucking could get. Real quick though, hey, the opinions shared by me are not those of my talented co host or many guests. That being said, Joe Rogan looks like a cock that's mostly girth. I found out how short he is. He's about as short as his best friend Ben Shapiro here. They're both about 5'7". Joe's about 5'7" by 5'7". So here's Joe Rogan is on the Ben Shapiro show. The elf on the shelf to the right, and the elf on the shelf to the left, if the shelf also had steroids on it. Joe Rogan is the smartest of the IDW. He's certainly smarter than Ben Shapiro, who famously just did the most legendary cell phone in history when he said that his doctor wife assured him that pussies don't get wet, save some kind of illness. Um, he's a slippery fuck, Joe Rogan. He moves around a lot. You know, he'll have Cornel West on the show, but he'll also have Sam Harris. He'll shift his opinion so many different times, but one thing he's never really come to terms with is his beliefs in race science and his obsession with gender and transgender people. So I'm about to. I'm gonna pwn him, as the kids say. He's on the Ben Shapiro show, so let's just get this started.
Seeing in society more broadly.
It's very strange because it's science denialism, and the left is all about science until it comes to gender. And once it comes to gender, they don't want to hear about studies. They don't want to hear about genetic differences.
Okay. Yeah, pull the fast one there by mixing gender and sex, which I do that sometimes, or I used to, really, to troll people, to troll SJWs. But in a serious conversation, you don't talk like this unless you have bad intentions.
Between males and females, they don't want to hear about preferences or any studies that show that people with higher testosterone tend to go towards certain activities. People with lower ones tend to go.
You know what? It's not that we don't want to talk about that. It's that we've never even heard of it. I had to Google this. He's talking about like some thing where like the more testosterone you have, the more inclined you are to risk averse behaviors. I mean, that sounds right, I guess, because like the older you get, the less testosterone you have. But I don't know, whatever, dude. And you get a lot cooler head as you get older. There's dispute among researchers, but that's what researchers do, is they dispute. That's how you figure out what reality is. So I have no idea. I think you just made that up. That's what they call a scarecrow.
They don't want to hear about that. They want this weird thing where you're not even having the Boy Scouts anymore. You just have the Scouts.
People don't want to have the Boy Scouts anymore because their kids keep getting finger blasted in their butts. People don't want pedophiles fucking their kids anymore. You fucking weird. What the fuck is he? And by the way, dude, Boy Scouts suck. So I don't even know why you're fucking dying on that hill. Dude, I was a Boy Scout for like a fucking... Dude, I was a Boy Scout for a minute. Let me tell you something. There's nothing I love more after a long day at school than coming home and dressing up like a fucking Katzenjammer kid and doing paper mache for an hour. That's just heaven. And don't give me this shit about camping. Camping sucks. If you don't believe camping sucks, go talk to a homeless person.
Like, there's this bizarre desire to eliminate gender as even a variable. It's very weird, and I don't know why. I don't know where it's going. I don't know what's causing it. I suspect it's...
Don't know why you care?
It's people that don't enjoy certain aspects of male versus female competition or male versus male competition, and the way that they feel like they can sort of diminish that is to try to make the whole subject seem like as if it's fruitless and there's nothing there. Let's leave it on. There is no difference.
Kind of like you and your attitude towards, and you and your friend's attitude towards socialism. You know, actually, though, you know what he's saying there? This motherfucker is so rich he never had to leave high school. Dude, and by the way, he's saying that we're jealous of the jocks. Dude, I don't know where you went to fucking school. I don't know, you know, you're older than me, so maybe the Breakfast Club was real for you, but like in my school, like the jocks weren't the cool kids. That wasn't like a thing. So, dude, nobody's jealous of you because you fucking bash your head against you can bash your head against a brick wall till you get so many fucking concussions that you think Jesus is telling you to murder your family. No one gives a fuck. You know who's fucking cool, dude? You know, this is how far the left thinks, generally speaking. I mean, because, you know, obviously everybody likes basketball and shit, but I've watched like one football game in my life. Generally speaking, Muhammad Ali is cool. And Muhammad Ali is cool because he fucking fought the government. He went to the Supreme Court, fought the government for his right to practice his religion, which is Islam, which, it's my understanding, you believe is the motherlode of bad ideas. So I have no idea why you think that anyone's jealous of you. Nobody wants to be you. They just want your money.
It's a weird time when it comes to discussing gender. Like gender, all of a sudden, which was something that was just, oh, there's a boy, there's a girl. I mean, our whole life, within the last half a decade, it's become this hugely politically charged subject where like I saw my...
I don't know, okay. I love how his, okay, first of all, just set aside the fact that his inability to process something so simple is weird. Makes it, that thing, weird. That's a complete inability to take ownership for your own fucking feelings. I have no idea what you're talking about. I've always, I saw that movie Injustice for All when I was a kid, and there was a transgender character in there. It kind of became pretty fucking clear watching that movie that that wasn't some sort of like kink. Whatever. I have no idea what you're talking about.
My wife was reading this thing that she had to fill out today, and she goes, look at this. She goes, it says, what do I identify with, male or female?
Point of this story is that his wife gets hysterical while filling out forms. Like, what the fuck do you care? Every form I've ever fill out my entire life, they ask your age. They ask your race. What the fuck? They want to know your address. They want to know your social security number. Like, well, this is what you're freaking out about?
It's like, state your sex. It used to be state your sex. Now it's what do you identify with? And I'm like, okay, what percentage of the people are we placating with this?
Yep.
Like,
yeah, you know what they got? You know why they probably changed that is because guys like Ben, whenever they asked his sex, he'd write yes, please.
And it's so bizarre. It actually has medical consequences. So I know a lot of doctors because I've said many times my wife is a doctor, and there are cases now where doctors are walking into a room and it says.
By the way, imagine being so fucking clueless that my wife is a doctor is a meme, dude. The phrase "my wife is a doctor," Ben Shapiro saying "my wife is a doctor" is a meme, and he still says "my wife is a doctor."
Is on the chart that somebody is of a particular sex and they're not of that sex because they're writing the sex they perceive themselves to be. Well, that changes your diagnosis. You have a completely different body. So, I heard a story about one patient who came in and was having lower abdominal pain. Well, if you're a boy versus you're a girl, that's going to make a pretty large difference into how that diagnosis goes.
Yeah, dude. Doctors go to medical school. They spend half their lives in fucking school, and then the other half of their lives paying the bills on that fucking school. I think they could figure out the gender of somebody.
At least a doctor know what sex you're born with.
This is why virgins should not be given power.
It's totally wild, and it's all this attempt to level. I think everything, the attempt to just get rid of natural differences between human beings and pretend they don't exist. Like we all want everybody to obviously have equal rights and equal liberties, but
by we, Ben means not him. You ever think that like Joe Rogan goes over to his friend Ben's house for dinner, and then like the next day Ben will call him up and be like, "Hey Joe, I think you ought to go to the hospital. My wife, the doctor, told me that every time you come over, her pussy gets sick." Oh no, every time you come over, her P word gets sick.
That's not the same thing as saying that everybody is going to be equally strong in a fighting
Right.
ring.
What do you think is causing all this?
Whoa. Who's sitting there arguing that everyone has the right to be equally strong in a fighting ring? When has that conversation ever taken place? What person has ever fucking said that who wasn't 7 years old? What the fuck are you talking about?
I think what's causing all of this is that there's a deep desire, right?
I like to, when guys like this, I don't understand why this guy has so much fucking attention, because I see guys like this on Facebook all the time, and when they say something stupid like that, I get the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz singing If I Only Had a Brain, and I just post it in the comments section. Hopefully they can figure out what a Scarecrow argument is.
Now, in a free society, to try and figure out why some people succeed and some people fail, and we're never allowed to say that there are natural issues at stake.
It's not that you're allowed to say it, it's that if you say it, you're a fucking idiot, because it's clearly a rigged game.
I
don't know if you noticed who won the Democratic primary, but it wasn't the world's most popular politician.
And I understand the resistance to it based on race, right? So, for example, you see a lot of people who will say you can't ever talk about racial differences in IQ because that is...
People talk about racial differences in IQ all the time. Or at least they used to in the 1860s.
Is going to lead toward this racist conclusion that you're...
No. See, this is very clever. People don't really talk, generally speaking, up until recently, up until these two morons came along the scene, never really talked about race and IQ, because we don't live in 1865. What's your fucking point about... Yes, there's different racial differences in IQs. IQ tests are stupid, and we know why there's a difference. So, what Ben's trying to do here is he's trying to slip pseudoscience under the fucking radar by pretending that it's not quackery. By pretending that it's objective scientific truth that there are genetic differences in the intelligence level of different races. And this is Ben Shapiro digging a hole for my man Joe Rogan to walk right into while I wait with my dick out so I can pee on him.
Race defines your IQ, which is, a silly conclusion. Like, there are racial differences in IQ based on kind of group statistics, but that has no relevance to the particular individual standing in front of you. And so you saying this black guy is stupid because he's black...
Then what's the controversy?
...is racist. You saying there are group differences in IQ because every study ever done has shown group differences in IQ, not even based on racial groups necessarily, but based on different groups generally between...
Yeah, usually rich and poor.
In, age groups, there are differences in IQ, actually. If you show...
Yeah. I'll give you an example of a difference in IQ. Ireland had lower IQs than England. And then as Ireland became industrialized and the European Union was created, their IQs went up. Do you know why? Well, they all got sun. They stopped going out in the sun, and the melanin in their skin lessened, and that made them smarter.
Show that, at least from young age, to like 12. If you mention any of these things, then you're overriding the idea of a tabula rasa human being who can be created in whatever image you want. Like, what people really want is to correct the cosmic imbalances, as Thomas Sowell says. I don't know, what do you think?
Okay, there you go. You just contradicted right there. Everything you just fucking said. What does that mean, cosmic indifferences? Are you suggesting that God made you smarter than Cornel West?
Behind it.
I think
you're a moron and he's a genius.
You're hitting the nail on the head, and I think there's a tremendous amount of white guilt involved.
Why would white people on the left be guilty? What do we have to be guilty about? We have the right beliefs. We take the right actions. What do we have to feel guilty about? That's called projection,
dum-dum. Because basically what the IQ tests are showing when they do study differences in IQ and races, you're showing the rise of the superiority of the Asian race.
This guy is such a fucking idiot. He actually thinks that if he says that the Asian Americans are Asians are superior to white people, that makes him not a racist. That's how fucking stuck on identity politics the right is. That's how obsessed with identity they are. This is so fucking pathetic. First off, real quick, I'm just going to cover this real quick. Now, while I'm waiting, I want you to imagine how small steroids have made Joe Rogan's balls. I imagine his balls look like the last 2 marbles in a bag. Girls look at his balls and they're like, God, your balls are so tiny. And he goes, yeah, it's from working out. I Googled this. After 1965, the U.S. started to recruit high-skilled immigrants from Asia. More than half came after 1990. 72% of all high-skilled visas and allocated to immigrants from Asia. Majority of international visas go to Asian immigrants. 50% of Chinese immigrants have a bachelor's, but only 5% of people in China have a bachelor's. 70% of Indian immigrants have a bachelor's. In India, less than 15% have a bachelor's. This also is on there too. This is another thing about that. The more a teacher expects and treats students as capable and smart, the more they show growth and score higher on IQ tests. In terms of cultural values, which Ben will allude to in a minute here, blacks are more likely to believe college is necessary than white, and yet they don't go to college as much as white people or Asian Americans. I wonder why that is. The fact of the matter is, Asians, due to immigration policy, we have more smart Asians than we do any other group of people in America. That's not an international figure, that's strictly an American figure. He's trying to fucking lie and say that this is genetic. It's got nothing to do with genetic. It has to do with immigration. Like I said. And the proof of that is this. 50% of Chinese immigrants have a bachelor's, while only 5% of Chinese people in China have a bachelor's. And that's why when you look at the average income of Asian American families, it's higher than white. It's higher than black. Good news is, for all you comics out there, we can make fun of Asian people because that's what the kids call punching up. And Joe Rogan's balls are very tiny.
I mean, Asians dominate those things, and everybody is sort of just like,
well, they dominate karate too.
Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about white and black.
Literally, I just talked about it. I think the one that doesn't want to talk about it is you. I mean, you want to talk about it, you just don't want to talk about it honestly. You fucking
more
liar,
it's easier, and they could find a victim, and they could find a perpetrator. And
dude,
what you're also seeing. Like, there's a lot of Asian groups that are furious because they're getting discriminated against about getting into colleges and universities.
They're not getting discriminated against. When you go to a college, you have to go get interviewed. And when you get interviewed, they're not looking for how good you are at math or whether or not your penis is sideways. They're looking for whether or not you are a well-rounded student. It doesn't mean your head. That means your fucking cultural literacy. They want, like, in other words, you're probably going to get better, you probably got a better shot at getting into an art school. Like, if you're Asian and you're an artist, that's what they're looking for. If you're Asian and you're a political science major, that's what they're looking for. We don't have enough Asian fucking politicians, frankly. You don't see a lot of Asian people who aren't fucking morons, like Andrew Yang, running for fucking president. There's a reason for that. I imagine there's not a lot of Asian lawyers. Because of immigration. Asian people were not allowed in this country for decades. They were blocked from entering this country by your you, Joe Rogan, and you, Ben Shapiro's ideological predecessors would not allow Asian people into this country. And when they finally did decide to let them in, they did it in terms of benefiting the wealthy. What can you do for our companies to make us richer? So we'll take Asian people, but we just want the fucking engineers. We just want the scientists. And they all have money. And they all give their kids tutors. And they all want to follow this tradition. My dad's an engineer, so I'm an engineer, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. And frankly, because they're rich, they're also boring. And so when they show up to a fucking Harvard interview, they bore the fuck out of that interviewer. They got nothing to say. They're not funny. They're not weird. They're not dreamy. That's why they're not getting in. They're like, we got plenty of math whizzes in this motherfucker. You know, we need another Susan Sontag. We need an Indian Susan Sontag. You got any of those?
They have higher standards because they have such a high percentage of Asians that are getting into the universities. It's very strange because they're not vocal about it, and they're not publicizing it, and they're not screaming racism.
They're totally publicizing it. There was a massive public lawsuit. I find it very fucking weird that he looks at the differences in the world as being weird, not his inability to process reality as being weird. The guy who made millions staring at other people watching dude, this guy made millions just standing there and watching while poor people ate bugs in order to pay their mortgage. That's what fucking Fear Factor was. This motherfucker's trying to tell you transgender people are weird. It's weird that you're not a racist.
In the streets, but they're the victims of it. They actually are the victims of hard work and success and excellent genetics.
Right. Well,
boom. This is exactly what he was saying about our attitude, our alleged attitude towards sports. Forget the fact that everybody's a LeBron fan. We'll set that aside. This is what he was saying about our attitude towards sports. This motherfucker just wants to fucking deny the fucking fact that the system is rigged. So he'll just sit there and fucking lie. And then but the ultimate end game for both of these motherfuckers is to sell you on the idea that black people are poor because of their genetics. And there's nothing that you can do, so don't waste their tax money, their money. It's not their money. And by the way, that's not, Joe Rogan never earned his fucking money. The people who fucking, he stole that money from the people who ate bugs on Fear Factor. These motherfuckers just don't want to pay their bills. And they will sit there and sell white supremacy in order to fucking do it. This is pathetic, dude. The fucking idea.
There's no question. And the differences in culture are really the place where we should...
Again, differences in culture. In terms of cultural values, blacks are more likely to believe in college, that college is necessary, than whites. It's very possible that Joe Rogan's fingers are just too fucking meaty to fucking Google these fucking facts. And Ben Shapiro is stupid enough to believe in his wife when she tells him that pussies don't get wet. But the fucking fact of the matter is they have the access to the same information as the rest of us. There's no way that they're this stupid. This is intentional. There's no way that Joe Rogan sits there and believes that fucking Dave Chappelle is dumber than he is. Wow, Dave Chappelle... Listen, Dave, I know you can do 8 hours of improv on a comedy fucking stage without walking a single member of the crowd, but, you know, you're clearly not as smart as Joe Rogan because he's white. This is the stupid... And Ben Shapiro, if you're fucking... Dude, if you're such a fucking genius, how do you not know how pussies work? You went to law school, you fucking dumbass. I'm so fucking tired of these two.